Okay, I want to talk about Chapter 7. We're going to go over some fallacies in Chapter 7. So Chapter 7 is really, for the midterm, it's going to be one of the most important chapters because it contains a lot of the fallacies that appear on the test. So I think I'm going to start with the multiple choice questions. Kind of that'll be the stuff you'll see on the test. So let's go to exercise 7.9. Okay. Exercise 7.9. So they give multiple choice. All right, in groups. Okay, so number 1, the health editor for USA Today certainly seems to know what she is talking about when she recommends we take vitamins. But I happen to know she works for Tishon Incorporated, a large manufacturer of vitamin supplements. So we got to figure out what the fallacy is there. We have smokescreen or red herring is A, B is subjectivism, C appeal to popularity, D circumstantial ad hominem, and 4 no fallacy. So to answer this question, we've got to try to figure out what the argument is. So to answer any of these questions, you have to identify the fallacy, the conclusion, and the premises to figure out, what the relationship is between premises and conclusion. So what the conclusion is the health editor certainly seems to know what she is talking about when she recommends we take vitamins, but I happen to know she works for Tishon Incorporated. Okay, so she seems to know what she's talking about, but she works for Tishon Incorporated. So basically the implication, although it doesn't say it, is that she can't be trusted. She seems to know what she's talking about, but I happen to know she works for Tishon Incorporated. So to answer this question, you have to really supply the conclusion because it's not really here. But the implied conclusion is that she can't be trusted. So the answer is D, circumstantial ad hominem. You're attacking her not as a person. You're attacking her because of her circumstances, who she's associated with. You're doubting her word because you think that she's biased. Okay? So the answer is D, circumstantial ad hominem. 2, the president is right. People who are against fighting in Afghanistan are unwilling to face up to the threat of terrorism. Okay, so the president is right. Okay, so what's he right about? Well, it doesn't tell you, but the next sentence makes it very clear what the person thinks he is right about. People who are against fighting in Afghanistan are unwilling to face up to the threat of terrorism. Well, actually, this could be taken 2 different ways. It could be, it depends how you read it. I first of all was reading it as a begging the question, but I think the best answer is going to be C, false dilemma. And the false dilemma is because we are faced with 2 choices. Either A, you are against fighting in Afghanistan. People who are against fighting in Afghanistan. Well, it says people who are against fighting in Afghanistan are willing to face up to the threat of terrorism. So either you are unwilling to face up to the threat of terrorism, or you are for fighting in Afghanistan. That's the false alternative. The reason it's a false alternative or false dilemma is because you can imagine a different another alternative, which is that you are not unwilling to face up to the threat of terrorism, but you are also you're not in favor of fighting in Afghanistan. So it is possible to be against the war in Afghanistan and also to want to fight terrorism by other means. Okay, so that is a false dilemma, C. Number 3, well, I, for one, think the position taken by our union is correct, and I'd like to remind you before you make up your mind on the matter that around here we employees have a big say in who gets rehired. Okay, that is they give you a bunch of choices: wishful thinking, circumstantial, ad hominem, scare. The answer is scare tactics. That's the only one that works. It's scare tactics, or it's an argument from force. Either way, either one you could choose. Because a threat, when you threaten somebody for not doing something or for not believing something, that's an appeal to force or scare tactics. So that's C. Number 4, on the whole, I think global warming is a farce. Okay, well, that's why. After all, most people think winters are getting colder, if anything. How could that many people be wrong? That is this is an easy one. That's an appeal to popularity. It's the idea that if most people are for some policy or against it, that must be the right policy. So that's appeal to popularity. 5, Marco says, I think global warming is a farce. Claudia says, oh gad, how can you say such a thing when there is so much evidence behind the theory? Marco says, because, look, if it isn't a farce, then how come the world is getting colder? How come the world is colder than it used to be? Okay, that is A, begging the question. It's begging the question. I mean, the question is global warming happening? And this one says it's not happening because the world is colder than it's colder now than it used to be. Well, that's just begging the question. So it's basically saying it's not happening because it's not happening. So that number 5 is begging the question. Okay, number 6. Of course, you should buy a life insurance policy. Why shouldn't you? Okay. Of course, you should buy it. Why shouldn't you? That's obviously not giving any answers. So the only one that's going to work here is E, misplacing the burden of proof. When you tell somebody that they should buy an insurance policy, it's not enough. If they ask you why should they buy it, it's not enough to say, well, why shouldn't you buy it? The burden of proof is on you to give some evidence. So misplacing the burden of proof means you have to give evidence. So it's not the answer is why shouldn't you? That's not an answer. You need to give evidence. So the burden of proof is not on them to answer the question, but on you to supply reasons. Number 7, my opponent, Mr. London, has charged me with having cheated on my income tax. Okay, the question then, the issue here is, did he cheat? My response is, when are we going to get this campaign out of the gutter? Isn't it time we stood up and made it clear that vilification has no place in politics? Okay, that's just an evasion of the question. So this would be a smokescreen or red herring. That's what politicians are great at this. They, instead of answering the question, they simply, they change the topic. Like, when are we going to get this campaign out of the gutter? Okay, that's not the issue. The issue is, did you cheat on income taxes? Okay, so that's a smoke screen or red herring. Number 8, look, even if Bush did lie about the WMD, weapons of mass destruction threat, what's the surprise? Clinton lied about having sex with that intern, and Bush's own father lied about raising taxes. Okay, so this is the answer to this one is E, common practice. The fact that people lie. The question here is, did Bush lie about weapons of mass destruction? Okay, that's the issue. And if he did, that's wrong. I mean, he should be held responsible for it. But in this argument here, it just says, well, what's the big deal? Everybody does it. So common practice. Okay, so That's not an answer. And if you get stopped for a ticket, you can't tell the cop, well, everybody speeds. You're still going to get the ticket. 9. If cigarettes aren't bad for you, then how come it's so hard on your health to smoke? Okay, so we have circumstantial ad hominem, genetic fallacy, slippery slope, begging the question. Well, D. The answer is begging the question. D. Because basically begging the question is circular reasoning. Basically, it's the conclusion and the premise say the same thing. Essentially, you can rephrase the argument as this. If cigarettes aren't bad for you, then why... If cigarettes aren't bad for you, then how come it's so hard on your health to smoke? So basically saying cigarettes are bad for you because they're bad for you. Cigarettes are bad for you because it's hard on your health. It's the same thing. And when it says, if cigarettes are not bad for you, then why are they so bad on your health? If cigarettes aren't bad for you, why are they so bad for you? It's going in circles. So that's begging the question. 10. Gary says, I think the people who lost their livelihood because of the Gulf oil spill ought to be paid their losses in full. That's Gary. Oh, yeah, Gary says that. And then Harry says, but there are disasters all over the place. You can't compensate everybody. So we have perfectionist fallacy is A, straw man, appeal to tradition, appeal to common practice. Actually, they gave more. Yeah, that's it. Appeal to common practice. The only one that works here would be D, appeal to common practice. So in most disasters, people are not compensated, right? So why should we compensate these people here? The appeal to common practice is, well, we shouldn't, But there are disasters all over the place, and they don't get compensated. So why should we compensate these people because of the Gulf oil spill? So that's appeal to common practice. Okay, so basically all of these, they give you 4 or 5 choices, and that's what I'll do on the midterm. I'll give you 4 or 5 choices, and then you choose, which one you think is the best. So, and only one will work. It shouldn't be that difficult if you know what the fallacies are. So, make sure you go over the recap. Okay, number 10. Let's exercise 710. 1. So what if the senator accepted a little kickback money? Most politicians are corrupt, after all. So this is C. Again, we just did one of those. Common practice. Okay, that's common practice. So B, number 2. Me, I'm going to vote with the company on this one. After all, I've been with them for 15 years. And so we have genetic fallacy, groupthink, slippery slope, or no fallacy. The answer is groupthink. Groupthink is when you are committed to the group, and so whatever the group does, you go with. So it's groupthink. Groupthink. 3. Public opinion polls. They're rigged. Just ask anyone. Just ask anyone. Right? Popularity, appeal to popularity. What everyone says must be right. Just ask anyone. So that would be D. Let me do at least one more. Hey, it can't be time for the bars to close. I'm having too much time. I'm having too much fun. And that would be, I would say, well, the best one I think is C, wishful thinking. You're having so much fun, it's wishful thinking to think that the bars can't be closing. Okay, so that's all. I'll do another one after this one. Okay, so this is chapter 7 and the fallacies.